welcome to Finding Your Frequency, the show where we meet people here in North Florida, find out who they are, where they're going, and what success looks like for them. And today, we have the Chief Commercial Officer from JAXPORT, Robert Peek, with us. Hello, Robert. How are you?
It's great to see you.
Welcome to Finding Your Frequency.
Thanks for having me.
You're at the port, and we had Chelsea Cavanaugh on a couple of weeks ago, and we just scratched the surface, I think. There is so much going on these days over there.
There is. It's a tremendous, we call it an ecosystem.
Yeah.
And it kind of operates in some ways kind of quietly behind the scenes in Jacksonville, but it's a tremendous engine for the community. In fact, we had an economic impact study done recently, and there's about 28,000 jobs in Northeast Florida that we call port dependent.
Right.
People actually rely on the port to be here, to have their living here in Jacksonville.
Just give us a scope of the growth. You've been there for 29 years,
yes,
right?
Yeah.
You got there the year after I started with the Jaguars.
Yes.
So we're contemporaries there over on that side of town.
Right.
How has it changed in 29 years? How much bigger has it gotten since you arrived?
Well, there's a number of things. So I'll start with one is when I got there, we had no cruise service in Jacksonville. Well, now we've had cruise service with Carnival Cruise Lines for 20 years.
It's amazing it's been that long.
And next year we get another cruise line coming to Jacksonville, Norwegian Cruise Lines.
No kidding.
This will be our second cruise line. So Carnival stays, they'll continue to operate. Norwegian will come as well. So that's a big change over the years.
Well, to see Jacksonville, which has always been differentiated from South Florida, where we think of the cruises coming from,
right,
to now get an even stronger foothold, grip on some cruise business. Good for us.
It's interesting you mentioned South Florida because South Florida, they're big cruise ports, right? So you got Miami, even Everglades, Canaveral.
Yeah.
But Jacksonville, we've had one cruise ship, but we're a really large cargo port.
Right.
So we're the busiest container port in Florida, the 10th largest in the United States for those 20-foot, 40-foot boxes full of goods. We're the third busiest port in the United States for handling automobiles, as an example. So we're very large in certain cargo segments. We're smaller on cruise. And we're never going to be like the Miami of cruise.
Right.
But we love the fact that we're going to have two cruise lines here.
When you look at the entire East Coast and you think about the ports that handle the cargo, and you were just giving us some of the numbers there, is there room for JAXPORT to grow, even climb those rankings?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's absolutely room for all ports to grow.
Okay.
And Brian, if you look over the last 20, 30 years, it's remarkable. All ports have grown. They've all grown their volume because just the sheer amount of international trade has grown. So it's kind of the pie has grown. Years ago, there were people who thought that the pie would be kind of finite, and in order to get more business, you'd have to steal it from someone else. It's not the way it's happened. Everybody's growing. And the projections over the next 20, 30, 40 years are the same way. It's going to take all these ports to accommodate all the business that really wants to come in and out of the United States.
So you're on the sales and marketing side of it,
Yes.
right? When you reach out to a potential user of JAXPORT, a potential customer, what kind of reaction do you get?
It's usually very positive, and particularly the people who know us. So more and more internationally, we're becoming more and more known internationally. Right. So years ago, you'd say I'm from Jacksonville. A lot of people would say, I really don't know where that is. Increasingly, people are having more familiarity with it. Candidly, the Jaguars have helped with that.
Sure.
They really have.
Yeah, they're an economic engine just like JAXPORT.
They are, and they've been a brand ambassador. So you go there, people say, I know you because I know where you guys are from Jacksonville. And so our reception we're very well received. And what we like is that our port, I mentioned, we're very large in terms of our capabilities, but we still have kind of that customer-centric capability here as well.
Right.
That we're not so big that when you call us, you're getting a machine, you're getting a human being. And we really sit down and talk to people one-on-one. So we have all the capabilities of a large facility, but we are very customer-centric the way you might find a smaller operation.
Any specific growth areas? You mentioned the automobile side is a big part of the business over there. Do you see any other specific areas?
Yeah, so one of the big ones will be, I mentioned the containers, right? So these are the 20-foot and 40-foot long boxes that carry everything under the sun that you find in a big box retail store. A retail store probably is in a container at some point being shipped in and out of the country. That's a huge growth market for us, and particularly for places like Southeast Asia, like Vietnam, Malaysia, countries like that. Europe, we have new ship service with Western Europe. With India is becoming a very large market for us. Central America, South America. So these huge international markets that we're really tapping into.
Right.
Our largest trading partner for many years and still is the island of Puerto Rico. And we love Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico is fantastic. But in addition to that, we're seeing all this new international business coming in and out of the port.
You know, for a long time, I read about LNG, liquid natural gas ships. Is there still growth there? Is there still upside there?
There is significantly. And what's happened is the industry is increasingly wanting to turn to alternative fuels that are cleaner burning fuels. And the most technologically advanced on the market today that can be done at scale is liquefied natural gas, is LNG.
Right.
Now, shipping lines all over the world are using, building ships that are using LNG. Other shipping lines are turning to things like methanol. They're experimenting with things like ammonia, hydrogen, even electric power and wind power, not at huge scales. But they're just examples of the way the industry is trying to find ways to move these goods cleaner and greener.
You mentioned the Jaguars. We talked about them being an economic engine. It's similar to what you do at JAXPORT. The difference is that people can reach out and touch the Jaguars. They can be at the stadium, right? They can go to a radio show or a charitable event, and they can. That's not really that's not. I don't want to say it's not possible, but it's not as readily accessible.
Yes,
at JAXPORT.
You really put your finger on it, Brian. That other than the cruise piece, because the cruise piece is where people can physically come out and be in a terminal and book a cruise. But 90+% of what we do is not cruise, it's cargo.
Right.
And that's far more esoteric.
Sure.
Right? And so I've always said we have these facilities, they operate kind of in the industrial part of town, like on the north part of the town. Even our headquarters on Talleyrand Avenue, if you did not have business at the port, you'd never stumble into our headquarters building.
No.
So what you have is this huge economic engine that's just kind of quietly operating in the background in Northeast Florida.
Anything Jacksonville could do to support it?
Oh, well, and
the regular, average, everyday people?
Well, I think it's just an awareness that, you have this huge economic engine in Northeast Florida. Just to give you some examples, there's over 150 large industrial warehouse distribution facilities in Jacksonville. There's over 100 trucking companies that have operations right here in Jacksonville. There's dozens and dozens of logistics companies, hundreds of support companies in engineering and legal services and in cleaning services and everything else that support the port. So there's this. It's
interwoven into the fabric of the entire city.
We call it an ecosystem.
Yeah.
That's a good word. It's interwoven into the fabric of this entire community.
So you and I are about the same age. 25 years from now, we will not be working, right?
But probably not.
Probably not. So what does the port look like in the next 20 to 30 years? What does success and growth look like for JAXPORT?
Yeah, I think you're going to see bigger and more cargo. We're a port, the way we're built is not to have these phenomenal peaks or valleys. We're very much, I tell people, we're the tortoise, not the hare. So we grow at a moderate pace every year, several percentage points every year we grow. And we have this fantastic base of cargo, and then we just grow it every year. So you're going to continue to see that year in and year out. Other ports, they have these wild swings. They're up 15%, then they're down 13, then they're up 17, they're down 12. That's not who we are or who we aspire to be. We like being very steady. And so I think you're going to see steady port growth indefinitely, 10, 20, 30, 40 years.
Listen, if you are explaining it to people that you're meeting with, like you just explained it here to us, there's no doubt that this thing is going to keep on growing, and there's no reason why JAXPORT doesn't become even bigger and better in the next 25 years.
I appreciate that, Brian.
You can look back at that point and say, I had something you did have something to do with that. Robert Peek, the Chief Commercial Officer. Best of luck.
My pleasure.
And continued success. Thanks for everything that JAXPORT means to North Florida, because it certainly is a huge economic opportunity. And that'll do it for this edition of Finding Your Frequency. We'll see you.